call it? They make a song. Whoever contributes to making that, from the person who does this, to the person who does something on the guitar, to the person who's humming in the back, somebody who likes to shake up, all of that comes together to form the composite of the music.
The composition, yes. And now in order to monetize the composition, it has to equal 100%. So each contributor then of the music or of the lyrics, they have to come up with an agreement of what their contribution was, and then either sign a split sheet or have a lawyer like Andrew on their behalf represent them and sort it out so that it's in the agreement. Because a song, if it doesn't equal 100%, it can't be licensed and it can't be monetized.
I'd like to break it down even further and start from the ground up. We say publishing, what's publishing? Well, there is no publishing unless there's a writer. So writers have to write a song. We talked very briefly about how that works. A series of writers, whether they be producers with a beat, musicians, composers, lyricists writing the top line, the lyrics. First you have the underlying song, right? And that's coming from the writer. You can't publish anything until there's a composition. So publishing follows writing. Every writer is their own publisher until they do two deals essentially. Either a co-publishing deal, which will have an admin component, which you won't do unless you need money and need it right now. Otherwise, you'll be smart and go to my man Bud, right? And you will do or my man Travis McPetrich, and do an admin deal, which will take, you're not giving ownership, but you're giving an income interest and a lesser income interest in exchange for them having control to go license your music. By definition, any music publishing deal will have an admin component, because the publisher doesn't want to pay you $500,000 and then find the writer going around town licensing his songs here and there, right? And it all really depends on what you're looking for at the time. And there are also a lot of different variations of publishing deals, where if you can get in and out quickly, it may make sense. But just remember, when we say publishing, it all starts with a writer. And that's important. And you're giving up on a pub deal, typically 50% of the copyright. On an admin deal, you're giving up 0% of the copyright and a lesser percentage of your income.
Yeah, and the big difference in the agreements are, of course, the transfer of the assignment of rights, the transfer of copyright, where you're, as a writer, literally transferring 50% of your own.
The most important part is you have to recognize when you're creating your music, although you're creating it, you don't want to feel like you're bullying the next person. You have to come to an agreement as creatives on what part you did and how much value that was to the record. Because doing your song splits is very important to a company like myself analyzing how much you're worth and how much we should advance. Because we base everything based on how much you control of that particular song. So it's very important. I know people don't like to do business, but in the music business, you have to do business, or you just make music and put your hat out. So please know that Song Splits, there's also an app called songsplits.com that can help y'all deal with this.
Now, it's going to cause a lot of cultural discomfort for Jamaica, because how our studio yard work, 3, 4, 5 friends are together and just bouncing some ideas and some rhymes off of each other. If everything I say I have to stop and write 2%.
No,
No, but the important part.
So how do they handle that culturally?
Well,
Can I just say, the important part of understanding that in our culture is we need to not be afraid to discuss the business. We need to not see the music as a friend and friend thing. We need to know that, guys, this is a business. We're all working together. When you have partners come together to decide to form a company, we all come together and say, hey, this is the company we want to start. This is who is going to do what. So we need to change the culture and change the narrative and say, let us all come together.
Yes,
I'm going to produce this track. I'm going to write this. I'm going to do this. And that's how we have to change the conversation.
Well,
On a practical
from my
level,
experience.
good luck.
Yes, and a practical level. You used an example earlier, and I really wanted to kind of
speak to it for a second. If I speak about someone who, for instance, plays a guitar or beats the drum and so forth, and whether or not they're entitled to splits. No, it doesn't necessarily follow that the actual musicians who are playing are entitled to any publishing rights. And let me just break it down a bit. You can actually have that composition, that underlying composition, where someone already created the music, and they simply call Firehouse crew, Dean Fraser, Sonia Robbie in the room and say, as session musicians, I want you to play to this, because it's already created. In that context, right, the composer, the writer, is the person who's entitled to the publishing model, the writer, but the actual musicians who are playing, they're not entitled to any of that. However, they are entitled to some remuneration because they are what are called the performers on the final recording. And they now are signed to collecting societies such as jams and so forth, and also now benefit from a stream of royalties because of their performance on the recording. And the producer, the owner of the master, also gets stream of royalties for owning the master, right?
Now let's clarify that. We have a concept called pay for hire or something of that.
Work for hire.
Work for hire. So I come in, you tell me we're paying 60,000 to beat some guitar or something on this. I do it and I collect my 60,000. What does Jams do next for me when it becomes a Billboard #1?
Okay, well, first and foremost, there's no work for hire law in Jamaica. So it's a little different from the States, for instance, where there is work for hire. However, once that recording has been created, then we're now speaking of there are different contributors. So the owner of the master could be the producer, an independent producer or a label. They can come to Jams. We can give them global coverage so that every time that recording is played on radio, TV, cable, in a dance, in a club, we're able to collect royalties and pass on to them. So that's what we do for them. And we're also now doing that for artists and musicians likewise. So that is our role. So we are not publishers, right? We are part of that ecosystem that ensures that these rights holders get paid. But we are not publishers, but we are an important part of the system of ensuring remuneration takes place.
Well, Evan, that's a problem because we do have the work for hire system in Jamaica, but a law that governs it. So how exposed is that guitarist after collecting the 60,000 with nothing on paper to indicate what to do next? What would that guitarist have to do just in case Shaggy bust another #1 and I only collected 60 grand?
Oh, that's an interesting scenario. But I must stop at this point and speak to a reality that Jamaica faces in terms of performers. So right now, there's a gap in our copyright law where performers, artists and musicians, are not entitled to any remuneration for their contribution on those recordings. So the producers are, the writers are, but not, unfortunately, not performers. The process is being advanced to ensure that performers also are able to enjoy earnings here in Jamaica whenever the songs are played that they have played on. So the law will hopefully be amended very shortly to allow for that. But nevertheless, though, those same artists, whether Shaggy or Beenie Man, if their songs are played in, say, the UK or elsewhere, and you have a Robbie Lynn who played keyboards on it, Robbie Lynn is able to benefit from royalties from the UK and elsewhere, even though he got paid for the session here in Jamaica, even though there's a work for hire agreement or laws in place, because Jamaica, and I hope everyone is kind of following, because Jamaica is part of this international system, and we signed on to protect rights here and elsewhere. Right, UK would have updated their laws in such a way that it gives protection to not just UK musicians, but all musicians whose works are used in that territory. So we're not protecting their creators here in Jamaica or us, but they're protecting there. And so Robbie Lynn and all the other musicians whose music who play on tracks can also get royalties coming through to them, nevertheless.
I'll say one thing real quickly. Very practical producers who are hired usually by the artist. It's their responsibility to go out there and get the record made. Label says, here's your money. You go hire the producers. We'll give you, you do the contracts. We'll give you advances. You go knock them dead, right? Smart producers will in turn, if they're practical, hire great session guys they love and break them off. I'm talking back to writing and publishing now. They'll say, I really love that keyboard piece. Just have it on an A-Boogie #1 record in America. The producer said, I'm gonna give you, 2%, and Boogie was smart enough, we're gonna give him a little bit. So again, you incentivize some of these session people to share in the creation, even if it doesn't rise to the level of what we would call originality and they don't really have a share. It's like, do you want to put a core group together and keep making records? Then that's what you'll do. And that's what smart artists and
as a publisher, I've had that happen before. For instance, I've had a producer signed to me that did a record for Usher, right? And so there was a songwriter who wrote most of the lyrics for Usher, but because they have such a good relationship, he gave Usher a piece of the publishing out of it because they're good. They had to come back to me and ask my producer if he would produce a little bit so that everyone could get what they wanted or whatever, this and that. And I explained it to my producer. He understood it. He understood. He wanted to keep a great relationship with Usher, with the management, with the other writers on the song. So he agreed to the reduction. I mean, something is better than nothing at the end of the day. And this type of stuff happens sometimes, But I highly recommend to have that dialogue. And it's, it's tough because when people are getting in the studio, the last thing they're thinking about are splits at the moment. They're in the vibe.
And it's fact-driven. Every situation is different. Every relationship.
But I will say this: as records become bigger and bigger when they're released and chart and then start moving up the charts, it gets a lot harder to then go back and confirm the splits. I'm going to give one more example. I signed a writer that wrote the hook of "Blame It on the Alcohol" for Jamie Foxx. He wrote the hook of this song, right? But he wrote the hook on another producer's beat, and that beat ended up not getting used for "Blame It on the Alcohol," but that producer put a claim in and then was able to get a piece of it because my client wrote the hook over the rhythm of his beat, which, it got real technical, and that song ended up getting held up. As big of a song as it was, nobody was able to get paid on it for almost over a year and a half, because there ended up being 13 songwriters on the release, on the song, and nobody was agreeing to the splits, and the bigger and bigger the song got commercially, and I think it peaked at #2 on the Hot 100 singles charts in America. It gets harder to then confirm the splits because people want more of it because it's more money.
So it's very